We want to thank everybody for being here for us to provide an update to our fellow Texans about a very severe winter weather storm that's going to be crossing the entire state of Texas. We expect the weather conditions to worsen, especially going into Friday and through Friday all the way through the weekend. It will just increase in severity, posing ultra cold temperatures, but also providing types of precipitation that could be hazardous to people on the roadway, could be challenging for power lines that may go from a power pole to your home, things like that. I want to cover all those topics and let Texans know what's going on. However, because of the severity of this storm, right now I am making a disaster declaration covering 134 counties across the state of Texas to make sure that every possible resource can be made available to them so they can respond quicker, faster, and better. And the list of those 134 counties, I'm not going to read off to you right now, but they will be available to the press here shortly, and every county will know about it. Bottom line is that because this storm is coming in, because we know it's coming in, we have the ability for our fellow Texans to get prepared now. Don't begin getting prepared late tomorrow or think you can get around doing it on Saturday. It's going to be too late. You need to be prepared to make sure that your home, your office, your children, your pets, all that kind of stuff, you have answers and solutions to be able to address all those kinds of things. You're going to need to be able to make sure that you're what you may be planning to do this weekend. You need to consider reevaluating whether or not you can, should, or be able to do that. And obviously part of this depends upon where you live. The reality is about the top 2/3 of the state of Texas, maybe from San Antonio all the way up to the tip top of the Panhandle, will be the worst hit. There may be parts of the Rio Grande Valley that are not hit very much at all. But if you're in the weather zone that's going to be hit the hardest, is hugely important that you, your families, your businesses, you begin that preparation today, knowing that what you do today, what you do tomorrow, and decisions that you're going to be making over the weekend, you're going to have the ability within your own hands to be able to save your own lives. Whenever we go through any type of disaster, job number one is always protecting lives. And one of the most dangerous ways in which you can expose your life to harm is if you make the decision to get out on a roadway that's already had precipitation on it that's frozen. You know, when you're driving, when you have slick ice or something like that, you may not be able to see it with your eyeball, but you know when your tire goes across it, you lose control of your car and it can cause harm to you, harm to others. And so what we strongly encourage is if you're in an area with this ultra cold temperature that also has precipitation, do not be on the road unless you have to be on the road. You can save your own life and save your own property and save those around you. If you just be cautious driving for just a couple of days before the winter storm expires. With regard to that, the Texas Department of Transportation is working already to begin to prepare our roadways across the state of Texas. You'll hear more about that from TxDOT themselves, but I just want you to know that we as a state, we're not waiting until later today or tomorrow or the next day to get prepared. We are acting right now to make sure the roadways and all the affected areas are being layered with elements that will help ensure that we can prevent as much freezing as possible, make driving on them as safe as possible, knowing full well we will not be able to fully achieve that. One thing that we talked about earlier, and that is there are going to be road plows in many regions across the state of Texas. One thing that is kind of amazing to hear, and that is that there are operators of road plows and the plows themselves that seem to be hit many times in winter storms like this. And what that does is it takes that road plow out of operation. And so if you see a road plow on the road, know that they're trying to help you, trying to help your community, trying to make it easier and better for people to pass by on that roadway. If you see a road plow, just be very conscious of it, travel slowly and cautiously around it, and do not interfere with what it's doing. Very importantly, I know that a lot of people across the state are thinking about, gosh, is this going to be a catastrophic winter storm that's going to cause us to lose power? The answer is the ERCOT grid has never been stronger, never been more prepared, and is fully capable of handling this winter storm. There is no expectation whatsoever that there's going to be any loss of power from the power grid. That said, it's important for the public to understand there's a difference between the power grid across the entire state of Texas and making sure we have enough power to get to the power generators and have the generators get it to your home. And that's separate, however, from what could happen between the pole outside your home and your home. Because of precipitation coming down that would be ice, it could weigh down the power line from the pole to your house. That could cause a downing of the power line for you or maybe for your neighborhood. That is not an ERCOT grid issue. That's a local power provider issue. And the local power providers have never been more prepared for any winter storm ever. They're going to have trucks, vehicle, and personnel to make sure that if your power line goes down near your house, they're going to get it up and running as quickly as possible. They are already pre-positioned as we speak right now to make sure that your power stays on. And be in contact with your local power provider, obviously, if your line does go down, knowing somebody's going to be there to help you out. The one thing that assists in that regard, just to update you a tiny bit, and that is there's been an ongoing effort over the past several years to make sure that there is what's called vegetation management for all of the power providers. What that means is whether it be for hurricane purposes or winter storm purposes, the vegetation, whether it be trees, branches, whether it be large plants, things like that, those types of things that otherwise could have caused a power line to go down or could be touching a power line, we have done over the past couple of years more than ever to remove that vegetation from lines that could be downed because of a winter storm like this. Another thing that the local power providers have done, they have replaced poles and have better, stronger, more capable poles than ever before. Very importantly, and this is a part of the laws that we signed a few years ago, and that is these power generators and power providers, they have obtained additional sources of fuel to make sure there will be no fuel shortages. There already is an abundance of natural gas, which is the primary source of fuel for power generation, and because of requirements by the state, but also because of readiness by these power generators. They already have an abundant amount of extra natural gas supplies to be able to supply the natural gas to generate power in the event that there is any shortcoming in the movement of natural gas from the wellhead to deliver it to the power provider. Bottom line, no concern about any loss of access to the natural gas to make sure power generators stay on. In ERCOT, I'm going to let Pablo Vegas talk to you more about what the status of ERCOT is and what's going to happen. Going back to what I just said and talking to Railroad Commission leaders, I say, listen, there's ample gas storage to be able to meet all the needs for this winter storm, and there's really no concern about the natural gas supply. The Texas Department of Public Safety already has extra crews to respond across the entire state, and they will be expanding those crews. They'll be doing several things. One, unfortunately, there will be some people on the roadway that wind up sliding off into a ditch or getting involved in accidents, things like that. DPS will have added personnel to make sure they're going to be able to respond more quickly to those types of accidents, rescue and help those who have been involved in those accidents. But also sometimes in winter storms like this, there may be people out walking or in some other capacity where they get stranded. and whether it be the Texas Department of Public Safety or the Texas National Guard, we're going to have personnel out there to rescue people in any type of situation they get into where they need to be rescued from, and be able to take them either to warming centers, back to the house, or to a hospital, whatever the situation calls for. And in that regard, also, the National Guard is deployed in key areas across the state, especially focused on both the stranded motorists, but also on delivering water and food to those who need it. When we see what may arise here in the coming days, it may be difficult for some people to access needed water and food. For situations like that, the National Guard will be assisting, and as Chief Kidd will talk more about, listen, we're going to have warming centers across the entire state of Texas that can help with regard to water, food, resources, even the ability to stay in a warming center for a day or two as we make our way through this storm. We have an outstanding team that is already prepared, already responding to make sure that even though we're going to go through a harsh winter storm, we're going to make it through this process. And the goal is to make it through with no life lost. Next, I want to pass it off to Mark Williams of the Texas Department of Transportation.
Thank you, Governor, and thank you for your important safety messages for roadway driving. This is a familiar but a critical time for the Texas Department of Transportation, along with Texans around the state. Over the past couple of days, TxDOT has been preparing and maintaining a state of readiness for the response to this incoming winter weather. We've been treating roads and preparing our personnel and equipment for the days ahead. We expect to have at peak operations over the next couple of days about 5,000 personnel out working the state, along with hundreds of vehicles and equipment. We also rely and have been working to reposition our own crews around the state, moving crews from South Texas and some of our regional crews to areas of the state where we expect the conditions to be most severely impacted. And we also work with our partner state agencies and contract personnel to have additional equipment and personnel at the ready. Very importantly, to underscore some of the points that, Governor, you made with respect to the message for Texans. First of all, roads will be dangerous, so staying off the roads is always the safest option. Importantly as well, any amount of ice is a dangerous amount of ice. Any amount of frozen precipitation on our roads is a dangerous amount of frozen precipitation, even with our efforts to pre-treat roads and be prepared to help respond in those instances. We encourage drivers to know before you go. Be aware of what the travel conditions are going to be like, especially if you might be traveling out of your local area. If you have to travel, you might be changing, as we've talked about, the weather conditions across the state are going to change dramatically, so know before you go. DriveTexas.org is a great spot, great site that we maintain where we post road conditions. If travel is necessary, drivers should expect dangerous conditions. We ask drivers to slow down, increase following distance, brake slowly. Very importantly, because of the ice, to be aware of falling limbs, downed limbs, and power lines. You need to stay away from those power lines. Very important. Emergency preparedness if you're going to be out on the road, because the road conditions are dangerous. Vehicles should be stocked with fuel, food, water, and blankets in case of long delays due to road closures. Travel can be disrupted, and so motorists need to be prepared for that. And very importantly, again, to underscore a point that Governor Abbott made, is to be aware of our crews that are going to be out on the road, along with crews with our partner agencies and local city and county road departments as well. They're going to all be out responding and trying to do our best to keep these roads safe. We like to get a message out called "Don't crowd the plow." Give our crews and the other crews as much distance as possible to help them be safe and help them keep you safe. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you very much. Now the Chair of the Public Utilities Commission, Thomas Gleason.
Thank you, Governor Abbott. As the Governor said, we anticipate that the grid is positioned to perform extremely well during these winter weather conditions because of the historic investments made, in large part because of legislation passed by the Texas legislature since 2021 and bills signed into law by Governor Abbott. Historic investment has been made by both generating facility owners and transmission distribution facility owners. The grid will perform well during this event. Just to give you all, a little look into what transmission distribution utilities have done thus far, we began communicating with them earlier this week around Monday or Tuesday. They've already started to open their local emergency operations centers, so folks can go there if they need to. They've also brought on additional customer care representatives, so if you do experience a localized outage, as Governor Abbott said, you can contact them there. The other things that they've done that are extremely important, if you remember a few years ago, there were issues with outage trackers for all of the local utilities. They have updated all those outage trackers, and the PUC has confirmed that all of them are up and running as we speak. And finally, when you think about the big impact of this storm, you're looking at ice and wind. And so that impacts lines and trees. As the governor said, the investment in vegetation management over the last 5 years has been historic. If you look at the map right now, the Dallas-Fort Worth area seems to be impacted the most in the ERCOT region. I spoke to Encore yesterday. Because of a law passed in 2023, House Bill 2555, that was authored by Representative Metcalf and sponsored in the Senate by Senator Schwartner, signed into law in June of 2023. Encore has done vegetation management on an additional 8,000 line miles above and beyond what they would have done absent that law, and replaced almost 20,000 additional distribution poles. So that's just a really good example of the historic investment that's been made because of the action taken by the state. From the generation facility owners, they've done what you would expect them to do. The major thing that they've done is ensure that they have adequate fuel supply. As the governor said, we have a historic amount of gas in our system. There will be adequate gas supply to fuel all of our gas units. We have no concern about gas availability during this event. Additionally, they've put crews throughout the state to ensure if there is any type of freezing that it can be addressed very quickly and responded to. I have no concerns at this point about any issues with our generation fleet. As the governor said, if there are outages, they will be localized. If you need to contact your local utility because you have a localized outage, or if you encounter a down power line, which we would advise never to touch, please go to the PUC Storm Resource page. That can be found at puc.texas.gov/storm. That's puc.texas.gov/storm. There you can find all of your local utility contacts as well as an abundance of additional information to help you weather this storm. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you. Now the head of ERCOT, Pablo Vegas.
Thank you, Governor. So we've been preparing for this storm over the last couple of days as well. Starting a couple days ago, we published an operating condition notice that essentially put the power generators and the transmission operators on notice that outages need to be brought in so that we could have all of the capacity available over this weekend, and all of the transmission facilities would be ready to serve power over the weekend. At this time, we are not anticipating any reliability concerns on the statewide electric grid as a result of this weather event. I'd like to highlight a few of the key improvements that have been made over the last few years since Winter Storm Uri that have been incredibly impactful in helping the state weather through events like these when we've had these over the last few years. We have been doing weatherization program inspections over the last few years, more than 4,000 inspections of power generating facilities and transmission facilities. We actually get people out on the ground at those sites and take a look at the weatherization to make sure that they can withstand extreme cold weather that comes with a weekend like what we're going to see. We actually just put in place this last December a new system called real-time co-optimization plus batteries. This helps us optimize the resources on the grid in real time, moving them between reserves and active energy resources more efficiently and better leveraging the capacity and visibility of how batteries can perform to help support the grid. We also have increased reserve margins that we hold during events like this so that we can call on those backup supplies should we need them. There's more than 30 power generating facilities that have fuel stored on site. If there were to be an interruption of the gas supply, more than 30 power gen facilities can draw on that on-site fuel to keep operating during an event like this. So we're coordinating very closely across the state with all partners, including the Texas Energy Reliability Council. That brings together the gas industry, the electric industry, the Texas Division of Emergency Management, the Public Utility Commission, and we coordinate days in advance of an event like this, making sure that the key supply chains, the access, the critical facilities are known, and we know if there's going to be any risks or issues on the grid and are ready to deal with those before they become a problem. And I also want to emphasize something that the governor and Thomas both said, which is if there are outages, they're likely to be local because of the ice that is going to be coming in through this event. If you see power lines, stay away from them. If you have outages in your home or your business, reach out to your local utility. They're going to be the best position to be able to manage the repairs and restore restore power quickly. And we will also be publishing information on our website as well. If you go to ERCOT.com, you can get access to dashboards that will show you what is powering the grid and what the conditions are. And then ERCOT.com/Texans, TXANS, will also provide any emergency information about conditions on the grid. Thank you. Back to
Thank
you,
you very
Governor.
much. And now the Chief of the Texas Division of Emergency Management, NEMKIT.
Thank you, Governor. Over the last several days, at the governor's direction, 15 key state agencies have amassed more than 3,700 employees to focus on this event. They're operating over 2,100 pieces of equipment. And as you heard, more personnel and more equipment will be added as the situation rises. We will maintain 24-hour operations, working around the clock to make sure our local partners and Texans have what they need. This is where I need your help in the working media to help us remind people to protect people, pets, pipes, and plants. I spent a little bit of time yesterday making sure my property was ready. And in the stores that I was in, people were out there taking advantage of the warm weather to get ready for the cold weather. So help us get that message out as well. We want to look, if you have to look for a way to stay warm, if you don't have heat at your house, our local partners have already assigned more than 280 warming shelters across the state. We'll have that list on our website. We ask you to share that as well. Those will open and close, dictated by the locals as needs come. Our state agencies have already prepackaged food, water, cots, and blankets on our military vehicles and with DPS to be able to support stranded motorists and to help support any of these warming centers. And this is really important. People are going to try to use space heaters to stay warm. And I promise you, somebody across Texas is going to put something flammable right up next to their space heater, and it's going to cause a fire. Help us get the message out about space heater safety. And the next is carbon monoxide poisoning. People will start generators. They will try to run their gas-operated appliances to keep warm. We need your help getting that message out to them. You can help us save lives by being aware of carbon monoxide poisoning and not putting things too close to your space heaters. We want all of our families to have a plan, to have a kit, and be ready to go. Governor, your 134 disaster counties in the disaster declaration, we're ready to support them. We will have damage assessment teams ready to go. And listen, we know people are going to get out and try to drive on these roads once they get icy. We all know that. There's a high likelihood somebody's going to slide into a power pole and take a line down. You need to be ready at your home in order to stay warm and have a family communication plan. Governor, we're ready.
Thank you very much. We're open for questions.
I wanted to ask a little bit about the North Texas roads, given that's where a lot of the storm is supposed to hit. Can y'all tell me a little bit about what has done to repair, like the highways, like the public highways as well as the toll roads up in the DFW area, and kind of any kind of collaboration there to make sure these highways are clear?
Absolutely. So thank you for that question. The DFW area has been a very significant area of focus for not only the Texas Department of Transportation, but also all of the local agencies and some of the toll road operators that also maintain roadways. So very importantly, we coordinate within those agencies and collaborate on the process for treating those roads. We have been out pre-treating those roadways. We use a brine solution, which is a mix of salt and water that we put down in advance, and it can stay on the roads. And then when the ice begins to fall, to form or to fall or snow, it helps to speed up that melting process. It does not, very importantly, keep all of the ice off the roads. It is something that helps to, it's a preventative measure, but not a prohibitive measure. For a lot of the roads in the DFW area, especially some of the toll roads or some of the contraflow lanes, one of the things that we often do and anticipate doing is we will shut those down during these events because, quite frankly, without as many people being on the roads, those aren't as needed. In addition, thanks to some of the legislation that was passed, we've also implemented variable message and variable speed limits on many of those roads. And so we encourage motorists where we do have variable speed limits to pay attention to those speed limits and to adjust their speeds accordingly.
There are thousands of Texans who are unhoused. Is there any plan to send state resources into cities to get those people into the warmth this weekend?
Right.
So we're working very closely with all of our local government partners. That's why they've opened more than 280 warming centers across the state. Again, more will come up if they're needed to be up. If they ask for our help, we'll find resources to help them. So far, they have not asked.
Governor, there's certainly a lot of people that still have PTSD from 5 years ago. What can you assure them that we've learned so much in the last 5 years?
Pablo Vegas did a great job of articulating many of the changes that have taken place. The power grid system we have today is completely different than the power grid system we had back then. One thing he didn't mention that I'll add, and that is just the amount of power added to the power grid is more than 40,000 megawatts more. And so we have abundant power. The reliability of it has never been better. And the array of additional resources, easy example, and that is when Winter Storm Uri hit, there's reliance on one source of power. And when that one source of power became unavailable, that was a problem. We passed laws making sure that they have two sources of power. In case your first source of power is unavailable, you're going to have backup power. There's a long list of things that have changed. I'll add this, and that is this is a severe winter storm that will impact most of the state of Texas. The severity of it is not quite as great, and the size of it is not quite as great as Winter Storm Uri. That said, people would be making a mistake if they don't take it serious. But also, we cannot overemphasize this, and that is because of either ice weighing down the power line that goes from the pole to your house, because there is a possibility of trees falling. You know, when ice gathers on trees, it weighs down those trees, and it could cause a tree to crash down on a power line. We should anticipate some local isolated power outages because of damage to trees, damage to power lines. That's not a grid situation. We feel very confident that for the entire grid, there's going to be abundant power available throughout this entire winter storm.
Since we're expecting several different kinds of precipitation across the state, does that present a challenge in terms of figuring out where to deploy resources?
What it does, it informs us about using different strategies in different locations. As you point out, there's going to be snow in some regions, there's going to be sleet in a lot of regions, and then there's going to be some regions that are very cold but don't get precipitation. And so we have the flexibility to respond to each type of situation to make sure that the local either residents or officials in those areas are going to have exactly what they need.
Time for 2 more questions, folks.
Mr. Vegas, I know that ERCOT models and previous MORA reports showed that under Uri-like conditions, demand could surpass about 96,000 megawatts. I know that that's a pretty low chance in general. Can you talk about, kind of just what we're seeing and how much demand you're kind of expecting, how likely that is with this weekend storm?
It's not very likely with this weekend storm. As the governor pointed out, this is a different type of a weather event than Winter Storm Uri. The state was experiencing extreme cold weather leading into the storm coming through and had a long, long duration of cold weather following that. This storm is going to be more transient and is not going to be as long duration. We're forecasting highs in terms of peak demand in the low 80,000 range for the electric grid. We have well over 90,000 megawatts of capacity expected to be able to serve that demand throughout the weekend. So we're not anticipating any shortfalls in power, and it's a very different type of storm than what we experienced 5 years ago when Uri came through.
Go for it.
Yeah, I had another DFW-specific question following up on energy. You mentioned earlier that DFW seems to be the most affected in the ERCOT region. Can you elaborate a little bit on what you meant by that specifically and any preparations that are being made in the DFW area specifically?
Sure. So ice accumulation on lines and trees is going to be the most impactful to the grid. And based on the weather forecast we've seen, the Metroplex is where that's going to really be centered. So Encore, which is a local utility up there, serves a lot in North Texas, has done a fabulous job, not only doing kind of the baseline work, but like I said, 8,000 additional miles of vegetation management is really going to mitigate the impact of that ice on trees and how it could impair the reliability of the system. So they've made the investments to ensure that the grid is resilient and reliable, as have all of the other local utilities around the state.
Thank you all very much.